Defenders, this is why we have all gathered here. The Day of Ukrainian Defenders has a very special meaning this year, because Ukrainian defenders, which are not only those people living in Ukraine, but also many people from other nationalities, including Australians, who are defending the territorial sovereignty of the country of Ukraine, and who are today fighting against the Russian aggression that is unfolding on Ukrainian soil. What is important to realize, and why we here not only have Ukrainians today, but Latvians, Lithuanians, Polish people, Australians, and even some Australian politicians, is that Ukrainian defenders today are defending the entire planet. Today's Ukraine defends Australia as well. The reason why we don't have bombs dropping on our heads here, why we don't find ourselves in the situation in World War III, is because of the brave Ukrainian resistance. At the very beginning, when the war started, no one believed that Ukraine stands a chance. Everyone, the whole world, was already in preparation for World War III. NATO was already preparing for Russia to continue to invade Europe. Australia was already preparing for China to invade Taiwan. And the only reason why this has not happened is for brave Ukrainian people that said, no, this is our land, we have nowhere to go, and we will fight. We will put on a fight, and we will repel this aggression. Those people, those brave people that are standing up and protecting all of you from World War III are true heroes. And this is why ordinary people everywhere in Ukraine now, instead of saying hello, they're saying glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Thank you, everyone. My name is Katerina Archer. I'm here representing the Australian Federation of Ukrainian Organizations. We are very fortunate to have a number of Ukrainian community representatives, but as you can see, we also have representatives from many other communities. Lithuanian community, we have Australians with us. We have always our Polish friend, Georgian. We have Russians that stand against the war in Ukraine. And we are incredibly grateful for all the support and the continuous raising of the profile and raising awareness of what Russia is doing in Ukraine right now. Before I go on any further and before I make introductions, I would like to ask everyone to have a minute of silence. Thank you, everyone. It's always very emotional after this minute of silence because many people here have family members that are on the front line in Ukraine right now. I personally have 4 family members that are on the front line fighting for Ukraine's freedom and independence now. We have many displaced people from Ukraine, many refugees that have arrived here, fleeing Russian bombs and fleeing Russian aggression. What is important to us is that we have a platform and an ability to be heard. The reason we gather here is to raise awareness amongst our fellow Australians, amongst Australian politicians, not only to say that we are hurting and that we require assistance and support, but also to express our gratitude for how strongly Australia has stood with Ukraine. On that note, I would like to introduce to you a member of Australia's Parliament, David Shoebridge. He is a member of the Greens Party, and he is here to stand with Ukraine today, and he would like to say a few words to address the public. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the invitation to come here today, and to the community for coming out and standing out again and again and again and showing your unity. But I'll start by acknowledging we're all gathered here together on Gadigal land. And this is First Nations land. And this is actually the point at which the invasion of First Nations peoples happened here in Australia. And so we pay our collective acknowledgement to First Nations peoples. And we acknowledge these global struggles for peace and justice and land and treaty and truth. And the connection between First Nations struggles here for the right to self-determination and land is connected to the struggle in Ukraine that's happening here. And so we acknowledge this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. But I also acknowledge the strength of the Ukrainian community. If Russia thought that this war would divide the people of Ukraine, they have learnt a lesson. A powerful lesson in the strength of the Ukrainian community, not just in Ukraine, but around the rest of the world. Coming together and drawing solidarity and standing up against a brutal dictatorship. But I also want to pay tribute to the people of Lithuania and the community here from Lithuania and from Poland and from the rest of the world who stood together with the people of Ukraine. And right at this moment, hundreds of thousands of young Russian men have been dragged by their brutal government to be thrown into a war that they didn't choose. This is a brutal, awful war of invasion, and it dehumanitizes the planet. And I think it's at times like this we remember how much more in common ordinary people have around this planet with each other than with our governments. And we acknowledge that common humanity. But I'd also like to say this. It's a moment to acknowledge the extreme sacrifice of the Ukrainian people. And those people, those men and women who have stood on the front lines and defended Ukraine. Today is Ukraine Defenders Day. And as Anton said in the introduction, the defence that's happening there in Ukraine is a defence against a brutal dictatorship who would not stop at Ukraine. A brutal dictatorship who's already shown aggression to multiple other neighbours. And so what the people of Ukraine are doing is standing up and saying no to that brutal dictatorship. And you deserve solidarity and you deserve friends. And I'll finish with this. Ukraine will win this war because the arc of justice bends, and it bends towards decency. And the people of Ukraine will win this war. But you need to use this moment too to get commitments from governments around the world to also win the peace. Because wars are brutally expensive, and the damage to Ukrainian infrastructure, the damage to Ukrainian government, the debts that will be incurred in the course of this war will need to be paid. And you should be demanding, and I'll give you this commitment on behalf of my party, to be part of leading the cause, to cancel Ukrainians' debt, to stand with Ukraine not just during the war but during the peace, to rebuild Ukraine after this war as well. So solidarity to the people of Ukraine, credit to the defenders of Ukraine, which is why we're here today, and credit to all of you for coming together and demanding solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Ukrainian, so we're all very grateful for your words of support, for standing here with Ukraine, and for making the time on a weekend. So thank you. I know that we also had a number of other members of parliament and senators that said that they would attend today. If anyone is present here and would like to say a few words, please come up. We would love to give you the microphone so you could address the crowd here. One thing that I would like to say about Ukraine's Defender Day is that in any given year, there are a few days in the calendar that people look forward to. Traditionally, for our community, it's Easter and Christmas. But this year has been very different. Ukraine's Defender Day is by far and definitely the biggest day in the calendar. Not because we would like to celebrate, but because we are in an unfortunate situation where Russia's brutal invasion against Ukraine has touched literally every single family in Ukraine, not only residing in Ukraine, but abroad as well. So we would like to acknowledge the sacrifice, the bravery, and the sheer determination of the Ukrainian armed forces that are composed of not professional military men, but are composed of miners, builders, teachers, professors, musicians, artists. Every single person in Ukraine right now is a fighter. So we would like to acknowledge that fight, to let them know that we stand with them, that we will be fighting for them here in Australia and doing the best that we can to raise awareness and to also ask and thank the Australian government for their support. So thank you. Thank you, Australia!
Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia!
Today we would like to thank and remember every single defender of Ukraine and all those that helped them in defending Ukrainian civilians, its sovereignty, freedom, independence, but also the democracy, human rights and freedom of the entire world. We as Ukrainians are so grateful to Australia and every single Australian who has chosen to support Ukraine in every way that they can and does so more and more every single day since day one. Thank you. In doing so, you all help to defend Ukraine, which in turn defends our shared values and freedoms here in Australia. Thank you, Australia. Today we ask you to collectively do more, Australia, and provide many more heavy weapons to Ukraine, which you do have stockpiled and that you're providing. This is very important because Ukraine badly needs these weapons to protect its civilians from the daily Russian terrorism that is going on every single day for 8 months. There's been over 21,000 registered war crimes by the Russian Federation on the territory of Ukraine in the last 8 months. So please, Australia, remember, when you arm Ukraine, you save lives. Arm Ukraine now and 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 save lives.
Arm Ukraine now and save lives. Arm Ukraine now and save lives. Arm Ukraine now and save lives.
I would like to read out a short reminder for the Defenders of Ukraine Day that was posted by one of the defenders of Mariupol, Azovstal, that was released from captivity not long ago. Not all men are defenders of Ukraine, and not all defenders of Ukraine are men. The defenders of Ukraine are not only comprised of military, and not all defenders of Ukraine are Ukrainian, and not all Ukrainians are defenders of Ukraine. Today we thank every single one from every country that collectively helps defend Ukraine and its civilians. Thank you. I will also say the same in Ukrainian. Не всі чоловіки захисники України. Не всі захисники України – чоловіки. Серед захисників України є не лише військові. Не всі захисники України – українці. і на всі українці, захисники України. Дякую всім причетним. I would like to now call to speak an Australian by the name of Jane, who in 2014 lost both her parents when the Russian forces shot down flight MH17 over Ukraine.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you all for having me here and letting me speak to you. I lost my mother and my stepmother, so my mother and my stepfather in July 2014 on MH17. They were two of 298 people, 40 Australians, there were 80 children, and there's also a lot of people in their late teens and 20s who were going out on their first overseas trip. Since that time, we've been subjected to an international disinformation campaign that has just been brutal and inhumane, and it's been coordinated by the Russian government and Russian embassies around the country, including the embassy in Canberra and the consulate. I know we're all emotional and tired of this war, and we just want it to stop, but there is no peace that can be made with people who behave like this. There's no agreement you can make that could ever be relied upon. Their word, it holds no value. The word of people who lie all the time. Any peace agreement is worthless. I'm sorry, it's always difficult for me to think about it. Slava Ukraini! Thank you all so much for letting me be here with you. It's so difficult to watch the news and see more people being murdered by Russian missiles and more lies, and so many people going through exactly what we went through all over again, and I just feel so powerless that there's nothing I can do about it. So being able to come here and support Ukraine, support the defenders of Ukraine in even the small way that I can, just keeps me sane. So thank you all so much, and Slava Ukraini!
Jane, thank you for your incredible strength, your bravery. You come here on a regular basis to stand with us, to support us. You tell us how much Australia cares, how much you care, how much all of this means to you. And we, as Ukrainians, appreciate everything that you do for us and the strength that you exhibit each and every time that you come here. So thank you, Jane. This week was a very big week for us. The beginning of the week started with indiscriminate missiles hitting every single part of Ukraine. My parents woke up to the same explosions that they woke up to on February 24th earlier this year. Except one thing was different. They had no fear. I was calling them absolutely scared, in a panic, and just fearing that something happened to them. When I finally did get a hold of my family, each and every single one of them had the same message. And that message was, we are not scared. Russia will not break us. We are not scared. Russia will not break us. We are not scared. Russia will not break us. We are not scared. Russia will not break us.
We are not scared. Russia will not break us. We are not scared. Russia will not break us. We are not scared.
We started this week outside Parliament House here in Sydney. We then moved to 1 Bligh Street to get the attention of the New South Wales Parliament and the federal politicians that may be in Sydney that day. And we had a very clear message and a very clear ask that we were asking to be heard. We have asked the Australian government for 5 things. The number 1 thing that we are asking for the Australian government is to support Ukraine with more military aid. And it is not because we want the war to go on. It is not because we are some warmongers that are asking for weapons. It is because that is the only way to stop Russia from slaughtering common civilians and slaughtering Ukrainians indiscriminately. We asked for things that are being held in Australian warehouses now, equipment that is decommissioned. We asked for Australia to consider to send more Bushmasters to Ukraine. We've asked Australia to consider to send M113 armoured personnel carriers. We've asked Australia to consider sending M1 tanks. All these things are sitting in Australian warehouses because Australia is either in the process of decommissioning them or they have already decommissioned it. What is standing here idle and unfortunately of no use to Australia would go a very long way in saving lives and protecting innocent civilians in Ukraine. So we ask the Australian government to arm Ukraine now.
Arm Ukraine now! 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 Arm Ukraine now!
We are very grateful for the Bushmasters that have been sent, thank you, that have been sent to Ukraine. You would have seen through headlines and news that they have done a marvelous job in protecting lives and helping the Ukrainian armed forces advance and launch the lightning counteroffensive that we saw happen in the east and south of Ukraine. So having those Bushmasters or armored vehicles or anything else that Australia can donate will no doubt go a very long way in Ukraine. The second thing that we asked from the Australian government is to apply more pressure on Russia. We have asked the Australian government to increase the sanctions on Russia. More sanctions on Russia! 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 More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia! So we have asked for more military aid, more sanctions on Russia. The third thing we asked for is for the Australian government to declare Russia, the FSB, and the Russian armed forces as terrorist organizations. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization.
Declare Russia as a terrorist organization. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization. Declare Russia as a terrorist organization.
Declare Russia. That we asked for, and this cannot be disputed, because every single person that has either a family member or friend in Ukraine or watches the news can see the brutal force that Russia is using against Ukraine. They see the absolute genocide that is being committed in Ukraine. Just at the beginning of this week, missiles were launched into the center of Kyiv. Imagine a missile being launched into the center of Sydney, blowing up the QVB or the town hall. That is the exact same level of attack that happened in Ukraine. The center, the very center of Ukraine's capital city was bombed. My mother lives one street away from the train station that was also targeted. The windows of my mom's apartment blew in from the shock of the missile. It could not be closer to home for me, and I'm not the only one that's like that. We have refugees and displaced people here whose family members, sons, fathers, are on the front lines. And the stories that we hear from them are just unimaginable. The words that my family used to describe the front line in Ukraine is that it's absolute hell on earth. They are outgunned and outnumbered. And even the civilians that are supposed to be relatively safe are no longer safe. So this indiscriminate attack that Russia is using, it's not military objects. It's civilian infrastructure and it's civilians bombed at peak rush hour as people are going to work and kids are going to school. So the fourth thing that we asked from the Australian government this week is to declare Russian actions in Ukraine as genocide. 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 So we have asked the Australian government to support Ukraine by sending more military aid, to strengthen sanctions on Russia, to declare Russia as a terrorist organization, to declare Russian actions in Ukraine as genocide. And the fifth thing that we are asking the Australian government to do is to expel the Russian ambassador and expel the Russian diplomats. Expel the Russian ambassador and 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 diplomats. Expel Russian ambassador and diplomats. Expel Russian ambassador and diplomats. And I will tell you why we are asking for the Russian ambassador to be expelled. By him being here, it legitimizes Russia. By him being here, it legitimizes Russia's terrorist regime. The Russian ambassador is going around Australia attending events, being hosted as a diplomat. And the reasons for these organizations hosting the Russian diplomat is that he is officially recognized by Australia, therefore he is welcomed by Australia. But that could not be further from the truth. We do not want the mouthpiece of a war criminal in Australia. The mouthpiece of a war criminal does not deserve to live a peaceful life while our family and friends are being slaughtered. The Russian ambassador, which is the mouthpiece of a war criminal, does not deserve to go amongst cities in Australia spreading disinformation. Thank you. Spreading disinformation, spreading lies, and treating the brutal invasion of Ukraine as some laughing matter. Standing for photo ops and smiling while children and women are being slaughtered. Therefore, we are asking for the Russian ambassador to be expelled. Expel the Russian ambassador! 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 Expel Russian ambassador! Expel Russian ambassador! And I'll give you an example of what happened just recently. The Russian ambassador attended an event where various communities leaders were present and also members of the Australian Parliament. And they were there mingling with the Russian ambassador, having no having no idea that he was present there, that he was officially welcomed there. But by standing next to him, taking photos and smiling in those photos, they are unfortunately, whether they know it or not, are sending a very unfortunate signal. And that signal that's being sent is that Australia supports Russia. That signal that is being sent is that Australia legitimizes Russia. So we cannot afford to have such events. We cannot afford to legitimize a terrorist regime. We cannot afford to legitimize the mouthpiece of a war criminal. Therefore, there is absolutely no place for the Russian ambassador and the Russian diplomats which spin the same lies to be present here in Australia. I understand the concept of reciprocity. I understand that if something would happen to the Russian ambassador here, there would be a reciprocal action. But I'm sorry, there are much more Russian agents and diplomatic staff here in Australia. It's already disproportionate. So send the diplomats home, send the Russian ambassador home, because there's absolutely no room and space for him to be spreading lies and disinformation here, while innocent lives are being lost and slaughtered in Ukraine. And a message to the Australian politicians and just the diplomatic corps at large. If you do find yourself at an event with a representative of the Russian embassy or the Russian consulate, and if you find out about that, there is no reason for you to stay in that room. As a matter of protocol, and something that should be accepted widely in Australia until the moment that the Russian ambassador gets kicked out, if you are present with a representative of the Russian terrorist regime, you get up and you walk out. You don't sit there and condone their behavior. You don't sit there and legitimize their lies and the absolute war crimes that they are supporting. Just like representatives from the Polish embassy, from the Lithuanian embassy, the Latvian and Estonian, which I personally heard. As soon as they found out that the Russian ambassador walked into the room, they stopped the event, they dropped everything that they were doing, and they walked out. Because they didn't want to be in a room with the mouthpiece of a war criminal. And I suggest to the Australian politicians that do find themselves in a similar situation until you kick him out, you walk out. You don't support Russia. You don't support the terrorist regime, and you certainly don't legitimize him by spending time and being in the same room as the Russian ambassador. So the 5 things that we have asked for the Australian government to hear us on is to provide more weapons to Ukraine, declare Russia a terrorist state, declare Russian actions in Ukraine as genocide, more sanctions on Russia, and to expel the Russian ambassador and the Russian diplomats. Thank you. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Dear Australians, I'm an Australian-Ukrainian, and I'm a very angry Ukrainian here today, a Ukrainian woman. Why? Because this week, just as in February 24, Russia, hear that word, Russia again attacked, slaughtered, murdered civilians on Ukrainian territory, on Ukrainian soil. They are not welcome. Russia, go home! Russia, go home!
Russia, go home! Russia, go home! Russia, go home! Russia, go home! Russia, go home! Russia, go home! Russia, go home!
Ukrainian defenders, men, women of all generations, are defending their Ukraine as defined by the Budapest Memorandum that was broken in 1994 reaffirmed in 2009 in the 21st century. It wasn't historical BS. This is reality. These are agreements. Ukraine lives by that agreement. They are our lands. They are Ukrainian lands. Our parliamentarian Littleproud said, we can have peace tomorrow. You know how we can get it? Russia can withdraw, go back home, and we will have peace in our land. We are fighting on our land. They are the trespassers. They are the invaders. Russia is the invader. Russia is killing our women. Russia is killing. They are bombing. They are destroying our infrastructure. So let's make it abundantly clear. Australia stands with Ukraine. 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 Today is the day of the Defender. We call it Свято Покрове. And that Свято means that our defenders know that they have more energy and someone behind them. And throughout the world, we are commemorating that day and the wars that we have had to fight for our freedom. These defenders are freedom fighters, not only for Ukraine, but for the world, for democracy. And so we ask Australia, arm Ukraine now! 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 We have fellow Australians having a conference in the town hall today. I grew up in Cabramatta Fairfield. My Member of Parliament then was Gough Whitlam. I ask those members in the town hall, I invite you to come here, stand with us and show that you support Ukraine in real terms. We invite a delegation from the Labor Party conference today in the Sydney Town Hall to come and stand with Ukrainians here. I know that many generations of Labor Party, and this fight is bipartisan. We ask everyone to show that they start. But you are here, you can walk down those steps. We invite you, we welcome you to stand with us. Stand with Ukraine! 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 We ask the people of Sydney, we ask the people of New South Wales to go and speak to each one of your members of Parliament. There is an election in March 2023 in New South Wales. Let them know that you are Ukrainian. You support Ukrainians. You know Ukrainians. We want you to say, help Ukraine now. 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 Help Ukraine now! Help Ukraine now! Help Ukraine now! We ask that every member of Parliament, every diplomat a function, wear the blue and yellow. And when you see someone who hasn't got a blue and yellow, assume that they're a Russian. So if you don't wear blue and yellow, assume you're a Russian. And if they are, then you'll know, I don't want to speak to you, because if you're sitting on the fence, there are no fence sitters today. We saw what Hitler did. This is the child of Hitler, and the people that believe in him and his government are of the same ilk. So show that you stand with Ukraine. Blue and yellow, it's everywhere. Blue and yellow, and you stand with us. Be proud to be standing with Ukrainians, because Ukraine will win. 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 And one of the most disturbing things of this war is till now, from the 24th of February to today, there have been 21,000 war crimes that have been recorded. 21,000. And that we haven't been to Mariupol yet, we haven't been to Olenivka, but we will be there. The Ukrainian defenders will be there. They're moving. Ukrainian defenders are on the way. No deportations to Russia. That's called ethnic cleansing. Leave Ukrainians in Ukraine. Russia, go home. 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 This is Russia's. Let's be very, very clear. This is Russia's war. Russia began it. Russia is the aggressor. It is on Ukrainian soil. So Russia can end this war by going home and leaving Ukrainian soil, inclusive of Crimea. So we clearly state the only peace is when Russia goes home. All its people, all its forces, all its apparatchiks. Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now!
Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now! Russia, go home now!
Russia, go home now!
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Не чую! Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава! Thank you, Lessa. And just to show everyone that Australia really does stand with Ukraine, I invite our dear friend Beatrice, who's an Australian girl who's never been to Ukraine, has no Ukrainian blood, and she would like to say a few words.
I didn't speak Ukrainian, so I wanted to thank Anton for translating. I wanted to thank Anton for translating my words for me. And please laugh politely at all my mistakes. Я звертаю до вас, сміливих захисників України. Вітаю вас з вашим днем. Мене звуть Beatrice, я Австралія. Мене 19 років, я студентка Сиднейського університету. Хочу щиро подякувати вам за все, що ви робите. не тільки сьогодні, у День захисників України, але і за кожен день вашої боротьби за Україну. Ви також боретесь і за весь світ, за Австралію, ви боретесь і за мене, і за кожного, хто поруч зі мною сьогодні. Щиро вдячна вам від усього серця. Слава Україні!
Check. 1, 2. Check, check. Ready?
Над ним стара плач, стара мати, син героєм став. Не плач, стара мати, син героєм став. Він за Україну голову поклав. Не плач, стара мати, син героєм став. Він за голову поклав.
Woohoo! That was amazing. That was amazing.
I would now like to invite some of our Hromada, our community here, to say a few words for the defenders of Ukraine. I invite Nata and her daughter to say a few words for the guys and the girls and all those helping them on the front line today.
Привіт, мене звуть Ната, це Соломійка. Я українка, живу в Сіднеї 9 років. Соломійка народилася тут. Соломійка. Ми дякуємо вам. Україна була, є і буде незалежною. Ми пишаємося вами. І ми пишаємося тим, що ми українці. Дякуємо.
Thank you for helping the bad man.
Thank you for protecting Ukraine from the bad man. She wanted to say thank you for protecting Ukraine from the bad man. Слава Україні!
I would now like to invite Tatiana and her daughter Anastasia to say a few words.
Всім привіт! Мене звати Тетяна Пишна, я з міста Кременчук Полтавської області. Ми з моєю донькою приїхали півроку, 6 місяців тому в Сідней, коли почалась повномасштабна війна. Я хочу подякувати. Дорогі наші захисники і захисниці, рідні наші, брати і сестри, ми хочемо подякувати вам за все, що ви робите, і привітати вас зі святом. Нехай Господь благословить вас і ваші сім'ї. Нехай всі ангели, охоронці світу захищають вас, допомагають вам у всіх ваших ділах, у ці важкі зараз години і все ваше життя подальше. Ми хочемо сказати, бажаємо нам всім перемоги. Ми бажаємо, щоб ви якнайшвидше з перемогою повернулися додому, живі і неушкоджені. Ми молимося за вас. Хай благословить усіх вас Господь. Ви у нас найкращі, ми пишаємося вами. Дякуємо, дякуємо за свободу, дякуємо за нашу незалежність. Скоро перемога. Слава Україні! Україна переможе!
Hello everyone, my name is Anastasia and I want to ask to our defenders. Dear our defenders, I want to congratulate you with holidays and say very big thankful because you protect our Ukraine. Thank you so much that I am healthy and whole now and all my relatives and friends still alive and I live. Thank you very much. I wish the defenders in the life will have very good life and always be happy and that defenders will come to homes as soon as possible, alive and healthy with the victory. Thank you so much for all. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.
Дякуємо. Thank you very much. I will now pass you over to Dmitro to play a few songs on this day.
Привіт, друзі. It's a bit hard after Beatrice to impress the Ukrainian community here, I guess. But I'll try. There are lots of songs, and Anton was asking me зіграти лента за лентою again, but I found another one. And I guess we should be learning it, should be learning our history. And when you start thinking about the songs and the lyrics, it kind of brings it, those events and those podii, which are, it's just the same. Everything is the same. Nothing changed in 100 years. You see those faces, you see those events, Stritsi, Tainche. It's all the same, right? And we're all here together.
I would now like to call Mariana to sing for us. Before I do, I would like to say one thing that maybe not a lot of you know, that every single empire and every single regime that has ever attacked Ukraine before no longer exists, but Ukraine does. It always has and always will. Because разом нас багато, нас не подолати. Разом нас багато, нас не подолати. Разом нас багато, нас не подолати.
Разом нас багато, нас не подолати. Разом нас багато, нас не подолати. Разом нас багато.
And let's record a quick thank you to the defenders of Ukraine, and let's say Australia stands with the defenders of Ukraine. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Australia stands with the defenders of Ukraine. 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 Australia stands with the defenders of Ukraine.
Australia stands with the defenders of Ukraine.
Fellow Australians, we are standing here because today is the National Day of Ukrainian Defenders. We want to appeal to all of you that Ukrainian defenders today are not only protecting Ukraine, Ukrainian defenders today are protecting you as well. The reason why you don't have the bombs that we have in Kiev right now dropping on your heads, the reason why you don't live in a situation of World War III is because of brave Ukrainian defenders. Russia is badly losing in Ukraine right now and resorts to terror. And as you see horrific images on your TV screens, Ukrainians that are standing here and Ukrainians that are there in Ukraine that do not have the voice, that can't be heard, and this is why we are standing here being their voice. We are telling to all of you, be brave like Ukraine, 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 be brave like Ukraine,
Be brave like Ukraine. Be brave like Ukraine. Be brave like Ukraine. Be brave.
Fellow Australians, no matter how horrible those images that you see on your TV screens are, know that Ukrainians will overcome and Ukrainians will keep fighting. But they do need your help. They need your help and they need your understanding that appeasement never works. Never it has worked in history. So when you hear people, even so prominent like Elon Musk, telling you that the best solution for Ukraine is to surrender, do not listen to that, because appeasement never works. 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 Appeasement never works.
Appeasement never works.
We tried appeasement before. Had we not tried that, had we stood up and fought for Czechoslovakia in World War II, there would have not been millions of deaths. So brave Ukrainians, which we represent here today, are telling you, don't be afraid, don't use appeasement, don't make any deals with terrorists, because every single agreement that Ukraine has with them before have been violated. There is only one simple solution. More weapons for Ukraine, more sanctions for Russia. 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 More weapons for Ukraine, more sanctions for Russia.
More weapons for Ukraine. More sanctions for Russia. More weapons for Ukraine. More sanctions for Russia. More weapons for Ukraine. More sanctions for Russia.
When the horrible escalation of this war started, no one gave Ukraine a chance. Many of your politicians believed that we have to prepare for World War III, that Ukraine will fall in 2 days, but brave Ukrainians have disagreed. Ukrainians are kicking ass of the army that calls themselves the second army in the world. If Russian army is the second army in the world, then Ukrainian army is the first army in the world. But this army needs a little help. This army is winning, and this army needs a little help. So help Ukraine win. 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 Help Ukraine win.
Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine win.
Russians, when they started those They were convinced that Ukraine will fall in 2 days. They booked restaurants in Kiev to celebrate. Well, 7 months later, they have more than 63,000 dead. And Ukrainians are pushing back, Ukrainians are fighting, and Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning.
Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning. Ukrainians are winning.
Fellow Australians, we have a city councillor that just came out from town hall who wants to say a few words on the day of the Ukrainian Defenders. Thank you, councillor.
Pujari Gamarua, Sydney-siders. It's really important that we recognise today. I'm Councillor H.Y. William Chan and I'm an independent councillor with the Lord Mayor's governing team here at City Hall for Sydney. Since the beginning of this year, we've been strongly supporting and standing with Ukrainians here, but also around the world. It's really important that we show that we are standing together, Sydney-siders, Australians, because we need to be defending democracy. We need to be defending human rights, the rule of law, and making sure that all of us here in Sydney and across Australia will be able to support and continue to ensure the safety and also the humanitarian safe passage for Ukrainians here and everywhere else. It's really important that we continue support and donate to Ukrainians so that we can be saving lives. Here at Sydney Town Hall, we've raised the flag earlier in the year, the Ukrainian flag, in show of our support. And we've also hosted the Ukrainian ambassador from Australia, and we understand how important this is so that we can continue empowering, advocating, and also educating all of us in our community the importance of standing together. But beyond just standing with Ukrainians and our local communities, we need to ensure that this war ends. We need to ensure that we educate and tell everyone else that the conflict continues. We must not forget about Ukrainians, and we have to stand strong together. Thank you.
Thank you.
When Russians attacked, when Russians invaded Ukraine, they wanted to destroy everything that is Ukrainian. They wanted to destroy our heroes, and they wanted to destroy our cultures. Yet the whole world now learns Ukrainian and sings Ukrainian songs. One of our famous people once said, and you know who that was, that a day will come when one person will come and say Slava Ukraini, and millions will reply, Heroям Slava! Slava Ukraini!
Heroям Slava!
Slava Ukraini!
Heroям Slava!
Slava Ukraini!
Heroям Slava!
This day has come! Slava Ukraini!
Heroям Slava!
Slava Ukraini!
Heroям Slava!
Slava Ukraini!
Heroям Slava!
So fellow Australians, today we celebrate the Day of Ukrainian Defenders. We have a war in our country. Russia is bombing our cities right now. Yet we continue practicing our culture. We continue singing our songs because Russia will not break us. 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 Russia will not break us.
Russia will not break us! Russia will not break us! Russia will not break us!
Ukraine is fighting for everyone today, and they need a little help. The reason why you don't find yourselves in World War III today is for those brave Ukrainians that are repelling the horrible aggression. So we are asking all of you to stand with Ukraine. 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 Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine! 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 Stand with Ukraine!
And I'm passing it on to our famous musician Mariana, who will play some more Ukrainian songs for you.
Thank you, Anton. And can you please be my... Yeah, just a second. I would like to say a few words. First of all, дорогі наші захисники і захисниці України, якщо ви мене почуєте, може хтось знімає, може хтось передасть, передайте своїм родичам, сіднейці я маю на увазі. Ми вас щиро вітаємо і, будь ласка, повертайтесь живими додому. Після нашої перемоги! Гей, гей, гей. Це я так настраюсь, сорі. Гей, гей. Гей, там, де чорні води, на коні козак молодий, залишає він дівчину, залишає Україну. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, летить до тебе, буйний вітер в чистім полі. Гей, 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 неколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, дзвенить до тебе, вільний жавір, дзвін, дзвін, дзвін. Жаль, жаль за дівчином, за зеленом Україном, жаль, жаль, серце плаче, юще в'єнце не побаче. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ляси, доли, ген, ген, дзвін, дзвіночку, степовий м'яй голосочку. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, 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 до тебе вільний жавір задзвенить. Я дівчат багато знаю, та найвіліпші в моїм краї, де зосталося серденько, де зостались батько й ненька. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, дзвенить до тебе вільний жавір в чистім полі. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, у чистім небі вільний жавір задзвенить. Вина, вина, вина дайте, як загину, поховайте та на рідній Україні, при коханні, при дівчині. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, дзвенить до тебе вільний жавір в чистім полі. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, у чистім небі вільний жавір задзвенить. Гей, 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 соколи, обіймайте гори, ліси, доли, ген, ген, у чистім небі вільний жавір задзвенить. Слава Україні!
Дякую, дякую, друзі, що прийшли. Дякую, що підтримуєте Україну. Продовжуйте приходити, продовжуйте збиратись, це дуже важливо. Я звертаюся зараз для всіх тих, хто не дуже розуміє англійської, але все одно виходить. Нам важливо пояснювати австралійцям, що відбувається. Нам важливо передавати нашу культуру, показувати, що вона багата, показувати, що вона велика, що це справді велика культура. І нам важливо отримувати більше і більше підтримки для України. Це наш фронт, в тилу також важливо воювати. Це наша війна, ми не здаємось, ми йдемо до кінця. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
І як ми починали з першого дня, вже 7 місяців ми виходимо, раніше ми виходили кожен день. З першого ж дня ми домовились, що неважливо, скільки це буде тривати, ми будемо виходити. І ми будемо разом і до кінця! 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 Разом і до кінця!
Разом і до кінця!
Або як Олена любить мене поправляти, разом і до перемоги! 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 Дякую, друзі, що прийшли, і дякую австралійцям. Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia!
Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia! Thank you, Australia!
As usual for our rallies, we are ending with singing the national anthem of Ukraine.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні доля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Дякую, друзі.
Дякую.
Родились ми великої години з пожеж війни. І збору я вогні, що закрили повезли, щастю позаді. Когда было
Я хотіла сказати,
about, do you have a question for me or just in general? I'm against the war, born in Russia, you know, Russian-Australian, about 30 years now here, and obviously when the war started I couldn't really stand behind, you know, stand idle, so I had to support Ukrainians because what Russia is doing is just horrific. They're killing people and it's unbelievable in 21st century.
What do you say to the Russian Australians who are taking the other side?
to be honest, I don't understand you. I don't understand why, in the face of the facts, in the face of what we see every day, you would choose to stand with that side. Russian rhetoric's changed ridiculously over the last 6 months. There's no consistency in the messaging. Even if at the beginning you somehow believe that the bullshit that Putin's spewing is true, how can you believe it still? After months of him changing why he's at war, after months of him progressively annexing territories and taking people hostage and using his power with the, oil and gas to control the narrative. So I don't understand you. That's it.
I'm not sure if you're aware next week, Simeon Boyko.
Oh yes.
I know him, and I just don't understand the party going on. But next week they're going to hold a rally here at midday.
Yeah, unfortunately, so I'm a little bit familiar with him before any of this, and I think he's quite self-serving, more so than. Because, I mean, if you look at the, coronavirus years, he's jumped on the whole, anti-vax bandwagon, and I believe that's not really because he supports the topic, it's more because he likes to be the center of attention, and he found this nerve in the same way that, even though he's actually pro-Putin, the rally that they're hosting next week is about, Australian neutrality and how we should not, join with NATO and how we're joining the war on the wrong side and we should all be neutral. In reality, in the face of the atrocities being committed, staying neutral is effectively just, appeasing the horrific crimes. So, yeah. Thank you. No worries. Thank you.
Personally, it's done really well. You outshine yourself, and we thank you at the same time.
How long have you been in Australia for?
18 years.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. My name's Anton. I'm the rally organizer.
How long have you been in Australia
for 18 years.
Do you like the country?
Yes.
Now, how do you feel about the level of support that we've given to Australian government and also government people?
Yeah, look, Australia has been supporting us from day one. I think they're doing a good job, but now as Russia is throwing more people in, I think this support has to increase. Sadly, we're still finding ourselves in a war situation and more support is required. And the reason why Australia should support is because Ukraine today is fighting for everyone. They're not asking for Australian boots on the ground, they are asking for weapons to defend their cities. Right? Ukraine, since their independence, has never attacked anyone. All they're doing is they're defending their cities from turning into another Bucha, and they are preventing World War III from happening.
How do you feel like at the moment there seems to be a double standard sort of coming from NATO and America and Australia and some
Sorry, double standard?
There seems to be a double standard in the sense that Russia's allowed to just indiscriminately bomb Ukraine, and yet everyone is very worried about Ukraine actually hitting back on Russian soil. And yet, with the threat of Belarus coming up on, from the north, and the fact that Ukraine's now just getting missiles and missiles and missiles, do you really think that's a fair thing for the rest of the world to expect Ukraine not to hit back hard?
Well, I think it's not a double standard, it's just fear. People are afraid, politicians are afraid. We don't have many strong politicians who have no such fear, and this is why they're acting in the way they act.
And do you think that well, let's put it as Putin would, that weakness is not really helping?
No, yeah. The only thing we learned throughout history that displaying weakness to a bully is only going to encourage them, that trying to appease a bully is going to cause more and more casualties, more and more lives will be lost. Had we stopped Hitler in Czechoslovakia, we wouldn't have lost so many millions of lives, and he wouldn't have advanced. And I'm hoping that Europe is starting to realize it now, because a couple of days ago there was a resolution by the European Council recognizing Russia as a terrorist state effectively. We're hoping Australia will do the same, and we are hoping that once everyone realizes that Russia is not a country, it's a terrorist state, they will act accordingly. You can't negotiate with terrorists. The only way to fight terrorism is to fight back, is with military power. Sadly, we don't want to fight. We don't want any war. Ukraine did not choose this war. Ukraine was attacked, but we know throughout our own history that appeasement doesn't work. And it's not that we haven't tried, right? In 2014, when Russia invaded Crimea, the whole world pretty much practiced appeasement and gave them what they want and warned them, don't keep going, but they did. In 1994, Ukraine gave away all the nuclear weapons in exchange as a part of an agreement to guarantee our borders, and Russia signed this agreement, UK signed this agreement, and US signed this agreement, yet here we are, right? And then there was Minsk Agreement 1, Minsk Agreement 2, that again Russia violated. So Russia keeps lying, keeps breaking all agreements. So what's the point of even considering that? If we know how it's going to unfold, they're going to slow down. They're losing right now. They desperately need to catch a break, regroup, train their recruits that are being thrown on the front line with no training whatsoever, get more weapons somewhere. This is what they want, and then attack Ukraine and then continue. They openly declared that they will not stop on Ukraine. And it's in the interest of Australia and every other civilized country to stop them at Ukraine, right? It's better to fight your wars outside of your own country. So it's in the best interest of Australians to have those weapons delivered to Ukraine. It will be much, much cheaper. When we said it from day one, introduce more sanctions, it will be cheaper than fighting the war. No, the world hasn't listened. So fight them now, repel them on the Ukrainian territory. Don't let them move into your country. Don't let other dictators encouraged by this and bring the war to your home.
How do you feel having President Zelensky, having come from being a comedian, an actor, putting the TV show 700 people together and actually becoming president? How do you think he's doing as a president?
So I personally was against him. I personally didn't vote for Zelensky precisely for those reasons. I thought, look, we are in a war situation right now. Our previous president had to learn for a very long time before he became effective at running the war. And I thought someone with no political background whatsoever would be even worse. Much worse, I thought. But Zelensky delivered, and now he is my president, and he is everyone's president here. He's doing a great job. He has no fear, so all Ukrainians on the 24th of February will lose fear. We don't feel it anymore, and he was this poster boy example of a person that says, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. Yeah, so this is how we all feel right now. We have no fear, and we will keep fighting for as long as it takes. But we just need a little help, because Ukraine is a much smaller country. Ukraine ran out of all their weapons already, because this war has been going on for over 8 years. So we need a little help, and it's in the best interest of everyone to help.
What do you say to these Australians who seem to want to think that Putin's right?
Well, just get a brain, I guess. How can Putin be right? How is it, on which planet is it right to murder and rape children? On which planet it is right to attack a country that did nothing to you? On which planet you can execute the entire family and then leave them there on the street of Bucha and then we see those images of this dead child holding on to the hands of the dead parents, on which planet it is right to bomb maternity wards.
Islam's even worse.
Yeah. So what is right about that? This is what I would ask.
One last question as a novice Australian. So what is the correct answer to Slava-Ukrainian?
Herojem slava. Herojem slava.
Herojem slava.
Herojem slava.
I'm going to have to practice that one, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for putting this together.
Thanks. Cheers.
Right. Okay, well, we've been doing the Ukrainian, well, Defenders Day actually, because in Ukraine on the 14th they have Defenders Day, and being in Australia we're one day ahead, so they organised Defenders Day here in front of Town Hall for the 15th, being one day ahead. Well, let's go and see if we can actually get to talk to anyone else before I shut the stream down.
I'm taking photo with her. Wait, you. Sorry. There. Зачекай.
Всіх індивідуально беремо.
Я роблю ріл потім.
Hey? Yeah, sure. What question? Yeah, absolutely. Who's your audience, by the way? Okay. Sure. Do you mind, before everyone runs away, we wanted to take a group photo and then I'll come back to you? What? Group photo? Oh wait, I've got to get my backpack. I'll be back here. Yeah, completely release
Could we do it next time just because we ran over? You have to run it, that's okay.
Okay, well, I was going to try and get a few other people to talk to, but everyone's a bit busy and in a bit of rush. So, end of the day, it was a bit of fun, learned hopefully a little bit more about Ukraine. Anyway, Slava Ukraine.